Finally, I must express my thanks and gratitude to the person who wishes to remain anonymous, who has typed out the whole book and carried out 2 series of corrections and several other things besides, while at the same time supporting a house and family. Bhikkhu Panyavarto, Bantad Forest Monastery, 1995.
Chapter 1. Kammaṭṭhāna. The word Kammaṭṭhāna is a technical term, and it is given a special significance in the way of Dhamma as practiced by those who are Thudanga bhikkhus. The true basis of Kammaṭṭhāna, however, is to be found in everyone, in men, women, those who are ordained and lay people, for it refers to such things as hair of the head, hair of the body, and the rest. Some people may not have understood the full meaning of the word Kammaṭṭhāna or Thudanga Kammaṭṭhāna Bhikkhu, so this book will be concerned only with the way of practice of Thudanga Kammaṭṭhāna as derived from Venerable Ajaan Manpuritatthera. Outside of this, I am not well versed or experienced in other ways of practice, only having a passing acquaintance with them, without ever having had a chance to become familiar with them. However, concerning those ways in which Venerable Ajaan Man led his followers, I understand them quite well, having seen, heard, and practiced them. But before writing about this, some explanation of the word Kammaṭṭhāna will be given, for it is the basis of the way of practice of Kammaṭṭhāna bhikkhus, and this will serve as a guide to show how it conforms to the practices which will be described later on. The word Kammaṭṭhāna has been well known among Buddhists for a long time, and the accepted meaning is the place of work, or basis of work. But the work here is a very important work, and means the work of demolishing the world of birth, bhava, thus demolishing future births, kilesas, tanha, and the removal and destruction of all avijja from our hearts. All this is in order that we may be free from dukkha. In other words, free from birth, old age, pain, and death. For these are the bridges that link us to the round of samsara, the vata, which is never easy for any beings to go beyond and be free. This is the meaning of work in this context, rather than any other meaning, such as work as is usually done in the world. The result that comes from putting this work into practice, even before reaching the final goal, is happiness in the present and in future lives. Therefore, those bhikkhus who are interested and who practice these ways of Dhamma are usually known as Thudanga Kammaṭṭhāna bhikkhus, a title of respect given with sincerity by fellow Buddhists. A form of Kammaṭṭhāna which has been very important since the time of the Buddha and is taught by the Upacaya, the preceptor at the time of ordination, consists of 5 parts of the body: Kesa, hair of the head; Loma, hair of the body; Nakha, nails; Danta, teeth; Tato, skin, in both forward and reverse order. These are taught so that the one who has been ordained should grasp them as a method of contemplation, going back and forth over them time after time until skill is gained, and one of them, or all 5, are known thoroughly. For these 5 are important parts of the bodies of all men and women. But that which is called the Kammaṭṭhāna, which is the supporting object arammana of any particular citta, is of many kinds, and according to the texts, which can be consulted by those who are interested, there are 40 such objects. The main reason why there are so many different kinds of Kammaṭṭhāna is to allow those who are interested in practicing to choose one or more which are suitable to their characters, for the characteristics of people differ. This is similar to diseases, which are of many kinds and therefore require different medicines to treat them. The method is to take up one of these objects and to repeat its name, Barikamma Bhavana, in any bodily position that is suitable or appropriate. For example, repeating Kesa, 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 or Loma, 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 having mindfulness to maintain constant control and not letting the heart wander elsewhere, while being aware of the particular Dhamma object, the name of which one is repeating, and not frequently changing about between several Dhamma objects, which is characteristic of one who is half-hearted and desultory. One should continue in this way until either truly experiencing the results or truly knowing that the object does not suit one's character, before changing to a new object. One who truly knows that a particular object suits his character should take hold of it as the heart's guide and continue to persevere without weakening until he experiences the results more and more and goes forward into the ground of Dhamma, where it becomes necessary for him to change the object of Dhamma, which he will know for himself. The result that comes from practicing with these or any other kinds of Dhamma that suit one's character is an increasing happiness and calm within the heart which one has never experienced before. This calmness of heart begins at the lowest level, which is the attainment of calm for only a few moments. Then it increases to a moderate duration, and finally to a state of calm for as long as one wants to rest, and to withdraw from it as one wishes. This last state of calm is much more subtle, deep, and intimate than the others. While the citta is calm, it can let go of all those emotional disturbances which normally trouble it in various ways, and then there remains only the knowing and brightness which are innate qualities of the heart, as well as happiness which arises from the calm, and accords with the level of the heart. There is nothing else there, because at this moment the citta is without any objective support, aramana, and is its own self and alone. Even if there are subtle kinds of kilesas within it, they do not show themselves, for it is like still, clear, unclouded water, in which any remaining sediment has settled to the bottom and does not make the water muddy, so that it is clear and clean and fit to be used for drinking, washing, or anything else. The heart which is without any objective support is peaceful in itself, and for however long it stays alone it will be happy, wonderful, meaningful, and of great value, causing the owner to admire it long and much while it remains in that state. In that it is both meaningful and wonderful, it never becomes insipid, even long afterwards. This is because the heart which is profound and wonderful is already within oneself, so that when it is cleansed and one goes inside and truly reaches it even for only a moment, it immediately shows one by direct experience how wonderful it is. But if one lets it go, letting it slip out of one's hands, and it deteriorates due to not truly going back to the method of practice or trying to develop it further, it will cause one to long for it and to feel very upset that one cannot get back to that state of the citta. It is probably for this reason that at the time of the Buddha, the heart of one of the Sāvakas developed and deteriorated up to 6 times, until he became very disappointed and sorry because of his longing. But finally he became one of the Sāvaka Arahants because exertion and striving acted as a bridge that made the link, enabling him to penetrate and reach the deathless Dhamma, the Amatta Dhamma, which is the realm of happiness. This he did by relying upon the Kammaṭṭhāna Dhamma as the way to go forward. Of the countless Buddhas and Sāvaka Arahants of each Buddha who have attained Parinibbana throughout the immeasurable past, including those of the Lord Buddha, the Samana Gautama, and his Sāvakas who passed on a few thousand years ago, all of them did so and arose up to the state of Buddha and the state of Arahant by using one or more of the Kammaṭṭhānas, such as the 5 Kammaṭṭhānas. Not even one of them realized Dhamma without a Kammaṭṭhāna, so one may reasonably claim that Kammaṭṭhāna is the birthplace of all the exalted ones. This is because before it is possible for the rupa and nama of a bhikkhu or a layperson to develop and metamorphose from the state of an ordinary person, a puthujjana, into that of a noble person, an aryapuggala, from the lowest to the highest level, he must have a Kammaṭṭhāna Dhamma as the device that will wash him clean, and the device that will in various ways process and alter his thinking and understanding that are the background of his citta, which has the seeds of vata embedded within it, and will scatter them so that they disperse and disappear entirely. Then it will alter and become the Buddha heart, and an entirely new sphere of heart arises in complete purity. Therefore, all of the Buddhas have upheld the Kammaṭṭhāna as a vitally important and essential Dhamma, and every one of the world teachers, the Sāsada, have always praised it highly in the circle of those who followed their religion right up to the present era. This is also the case in the religion of our Samana Gautama, who upheld the Kammaṭṭhāna as the pattern and the ancient unchanging tradition to be followed, and he was the first and the foremost, and he became the Lord Buddha because of the 40 Kammaṭṭhāna, of which Anapanasati is an example. The Lord Buddha also taught these Kammaṭṭhānas to his followers, and they have come down to us in the present age, and they still act as a bridge, linking beings in the world right up to Nibbana, and they will continue to do so until the end is reached of the power of the inherent good characteristics, the vasana, of those who follow the Lord. For these reasons, the term Kammaṭṭhāna has always been a special form of Dhamma within the circle of the sasana, and it will always be so. Someone who has faith in Buddhism, but who has not yet cultivated and practiced the way of Kammaṭṭhāna, yet knows something about the hidden things which are within himself, both good and bad, should not just think how clever he is in his self-knowledge, even if he can remember everything which he has read out of the Tipitaka, because the Tipitaka is only a balance sheet of the good and evil of those things, or natural phenomena, which are within oneself, and it remains like this until it has been recognized by a form of practice in which the Kammaṭṭhāna clearly shows up the way leading to the truth in accordance with the intention of the Lord in revealing Dhamma and teaching the world. These 40 aspects of Kammaṭṭhāna are the cupboard where the Tipitaka is kept. They are the means for the destruction of becoming and birth. They are the tools for destroying the rotating wheel, the chakra, that leads worldly beings whirling around through birth and death until they neither know their old and new lives, nor their old and new dukkha, which is all mixed up with these lives, all of which they cut off completely. Doing a form of practice which is without any of these dhammas in any way to give support and help to it will not lead to the destruction of the kilesas and the mass of dukkha which are within one, nor will it reduce them, ameliorate them, and eradicate them at all. But a practice which has these dhammas to give some aid and support to it can certainly destroy the mass of dukkha entirely. For this reason, one who practices for calm and happiness, and for knowing clearly and penetrating into all dhammas, must take hold of these Kammaṭṭhāna dhammas as the lifeline of his practice, all the way through from the lowest to the highest level of Dhamma, this being the freedom, the vimutti, of Nibbana. Whoever does the practice to develop virtue in a good and true manner, and by whatever method, when he reaches a truly decisive situation, in other words, when he is taking a step up from a lower to a higher ground or level of citta and dhamma, he will have to turn back and take up one or other of these Kammaṭṭhāna dhammas as a means of going on, so that he will be able to pass through and go beyond with ease and safety. Because these dhammas are where all the Dhamma truths, the Satcha Dhamma, which have path, fruition, and Nibbana as their topmost point, are drawn together. All these dhammas are within the sphere of the Buddha Sasana, and all the great teachers, the Sasada, of each era have been the first to reveal and teach them, each in the same manner, after which they were handed down successively from teacher to pupil. Those who are still doubtful of the Buddhas, each of whom revealed and taught Dhamma in the various ages, until we come to the present great teacher who is our Lord Buddha, should practice and investigate by the way of the Dhamma of Kammaṭṭhāna which he also demonstrated, proving it truly by the ways of wisdom until the results arose as he had intended. Then one will know from the knowledge and experience that arises from one's own practice with complete clarity that the great teacher and Dhamma are not different but are one and the same thing, which accords with the essence of Dhamma that the Lord revealed in brief. Thus, whoever sees Dhamma sees the Tathagata. The Dhamma in this saying proclaims all the Tathagatas very clearly and lets us know that the Tathagatas always dwell in Dhamma and are not dependent on time and place. For even though each of the Buddhas entered Parinibbana long ago, as understood in the conventions of the world, the truth, in fact, is that the Tathagata is just this Dhamma. All those who have seen Dhamma within the heart with clarity and certainty have no doubts regarding the Tathagatas at all, and what state the Tathagatas dwell in. For although the world understands that once they have entered Nibbana, they all disappear into silence and the great teacher is no longer there to teach with metta, the truth is that the Dhamma which the Lord bestowed and which causes enlightenment to arise in his followers is, in fact, our great teacher. If one has enough interest to want to have the great teacher within one's heart, it can be there at all times, just as if the Lord Buddha was still living. It only depends on the extent to which one is wholehearted in one's respect and reverence, and pays heed to Dhamma which represents the Lord, and to what extent one rates it as more important than other things. For even if the Lord were still alive, it would be of no help to one at all if one took no interest in it, and one would still be just as lost as one was before without gaining anything. So as not to cause regret and remorse to oneself in the future, and to bring contentment of heart both in the present and the future, one should practice and develop oneself by way of the Dhamma that was bestowed on us by the Lord Buddha as his inheritance, and which stands in place of him. The results will be the same in all respects, as if the Lord Buddha was still living, and there will be no difference in it at all. In other words, one will have Dhamma, which is the great teacher, in one's heart constantly, at all times. The topic of Kammaṭṭhāna up to this point has been considered repeatedly and at length until the reader must be getting tired. So I hope you will excuse my lack of ability once again, which leads me to repeat myself sometimes. But to some extent I think that this is necessary, for there might be some who do not yet understand the meaning of Kammaṭṭhāna as they should, and by this means they may be able to understand and to learn some of the ways of practice. Then, when they feel they would like to do some practice, it will be much easier for them to do so. From this point on, we will consider the ways of practice that Ajaan led his followers to do, which are still done right up to the present day. Doing the practice in the way that he taught is quite difficult, because it goes contrary to the ways of the world in bodily actions, speech, and mind. The basis of these practices are the 13 Dhutangas and the 14 Khandhavata duties, which are mostly methods of practice concerning the physical body, from the duties to be done in regard to visiting guests, right up to the 40 Kammaṭṭhāna, which are the methods of practice by way of the heart and mind. These are all interrelated with the various modes of striving. Those who wholeheartedly take up the life of the Dhudanga Kammaṭṭhāna bhikkhu must put up with things which go against their ingrained habits, and which have been long buried in their bodies and hearts, until they have become strong tendencies of character which are very difficult to get rid of. They must strive to get rid of them without weakening or giving up, because the manners and ways of those who are ordained are different from those of lay people in all sorts of ways. For in behavior, manners, restraint, and watchfulness, they must do things in the customary way of the bhikkhus, which is that of a calm and seemly manner. Therefore the Dhutanga bhikkhu should be strict in doing those duties and other practices which he ought to do, so that he may feel contented and easy in himself, and be an admirable example which gives confidence to others. For the 13 Dhutanga observances and the various duties, together with all the Kammaṭṭhānas, are just methods of Dhamma that straighten out the characteristic tendency of being obstinate. Bhikkhus are derived from lay people, and those tendencies of character are bound to be attached to them. If there are no methods of straightening them out, or applying disciplines, then it is probable that they will not go beyond the stage of receiving bhikkhu ordination, and will ruin themselves, and also their monasteries and religion. For generally speaking, the tendencies of character of people are such that they like to torment and ruin themselves and others in various ways, and this they do continually without even having to depend on any deliberate intention to do so. This is due to the formation of habits and their ambition, which desires all sorts of things which lead them on, or because they cannot correctly understand a situation and then jump to conclusions and guess what is right. This opens the way for them to have dukkha and trouble all the time in all situations, and seldom to experience the ease and comfort of body and happiness of heart which they desire. The words torment and ruin themselves in the above paragraph means various ways of thinking which are harmful to themselves, although within themselves they may or may not know that they are wrong thoughts, and that they are the fuse which burns, leading to damage and destruction for others, until it reaches the point where they spread out into speech and physical action, which may be called a case of persecution and destruction of everything. Now, we shall go on to describe the ways of practical training of those bhikkhus who are living with Venerable Ajaan. After this, we shall write about what happened to some of his followers after they left Venerable Ajaan and went off to practice and to live on their own. To begin with, those who came to Venerable Ajaan Mun's monastery for training and the practice of Kammaṭṭhāna were normally taught by him that they should make themselves to be diligent and energetic in doing all the duties and works which a bhikkhu ought to do. He taught them to be sharp in hearing and seeing, to be nimble and dexterous in movement, to do things quickly and not in a tardy, clumsy manner. He taught them to be resourceful and to use their ingenuity, both in external things and internally for the sake of Dhamma in all sorts of ways, and not to remain idle like a lost person. In moving here and there they should have mindfulness present, and he taught them to be careful and precise in all circumstances. In regard to meditation practice, Venerable Ajaan Mun taught all methods, starting from the 5 Kammaṭṭhāna as a basis, and going on to include the other Kammaṭṭhānas depending on what suited the character of each individual. While listening to his teaching, they would also practice samadhi meditation in themselves, and there were some whose citta became calm and peaceful while they were listening to his teaching, and the state of samadhi arose in them, even though it had never previously been experienced by them since they had started practicing the training. Many bhikkhus and novices who went to be trained by Venerable Ajaan gained results from samadhi meditation, bhavana, while sitting and listening to his teaching in various different ways depending on their individual characteristics, but their experiences were hardly ever identical. Receiving the teaching from Venerable Ajaan was a good way to lull the hearts of those who were listening into both the states of samadhi and wisdom, paññā, in their various ascending levels. Those who had never experienced a state of calm began to get calm, but those who had already experienced some calm increased its depth each time that they listened to his teaching. Those who already had samadhi as their basis would gradually increase the firmness of that basis, whereas for those who had begun to use wisdom, the teaching was a means of helping to develop their wisdom each time. Finally, for those who had attained the field of wisdom as their basis, at the time they were listening to the teaching, it was as if Venerable Ajaan helped to clean up the method of mindfulness and wisdom so that it became wider and deeper every time.